Hey everybody, how's it going? So, with nonprofits in the United States, you are required to file something called a Form 990 with your local government. That form is then made available to anybody who would like to see it, who goes to the website for their local government. A 990 is a form that allows you to tell whether or not you are donating to a real nonprofit or a Clinton or Trump foundation. The whole idea is to be able to see who the highest paid executives are, who the highest paid contractors are, and so on and so forth, so you get a little bit of an idea of what is going on. And while it does allow you to get a bit of an idea of what is going on, this is how I figured out that there was a nonprofit that's supposed to help the homeless in New York City that was started by Cuomo, where the executive director of it was making $500,000 a year as the homeless shelters went to shit. This is kind of how you could tell when something's a scam. Now, I wanted to go one step forward with the nonprofits that I run, Repair Preservation Group and Repair Preservation Group Action Fund, by showing you the online banking for each of these and showing you the accounts. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go transaction by transaction and explain to you what was spent, where it came from, why it was spent that way, to give you an idea of what's going on. Again, a lot of you are the reason that this exists, so I figured you should have an idea of what it is that I'm doing with your money. Now, I have two nonprofits. I have Repair Preservation Group Action Fund. This is a 501c4. The 501c4 exists to do political lobbying. And the other is Repair Preservation Group. That is a 501c3 that was started, and that wasn't funded by you guys for the most part. That was mostly funded by some wealthy benefactor that just wired $1 million to it because he thought what we were doing was cool. And he wanted to start a 501c3 that allows me to do a little bit more of what it is that I'm doing now. So these are two discrete organizations. Now, I want to start off with Repair Preservation Group Action Fund. This is what this GoFundMe was for that I did a while ago. And I wanted to go through it and tell you what the expenditures were, why they were spent that way, and so on and so forth, and give you a little bit of an idea of what is going on. Now, for each of these organizations, I have a savings account and a checking account. I don't want to leave all the money in the checking account. I want to have, most in the savings and some in the checking, and when I need to spend money from the checking, I spend it from there. So I'm going to spend most of my time going over the checking account because the savings account is kind of boring. Now, for this GoFundMe, again, it says $768K raised of this goal. I don't know if this shows you before or after the fees, but either way, for this organization, this is the savings account for that organization. This is, again, just kind of boring. I made transfers over to the savings account so I wouldn't be keeping it all in the checking. And I'm going to spend most of my time showing you the checking. So the savings has about $827K in it over here. And let's go over to the checking. This currently has $1,200 in it. Again, I don't keep much in the checking. I only transfer to it when I need to make a payment for something. So this over here, all of these credits over here that say GoFundMe, this is when people donated to the GoFundMe and it just credits my bank account. So I'm not going to go over each of these individually. It's very boring for me to just keep saying GoFundMe payout since it literally does that every single day. This over here is a debit. This is a wire transfer that is going to a lobbyist in Maryland. There was a right to repair bill in Maryland, and I did show up in Maryland, and I did record the Senate hearing and the House hearing for the right to repair bill in Maryland. We believed that there was a chance of getting something done in Maryland, so we did hire a lobbyist in Maryland to try and assist us with getting something pushed forward. This here is me paying for QuickBooks accounting software, and that's so that I can keep track of everything that's going on, all the expenditures, and so on and so forth. Here you have a bunch of boring GoFundMe payments over here. This is an outgoing wire transfer to a lobbyist in the state of Minnesota. Now, I went over the right to repair bill in Minnesota. I went over how Gary Doms, I believe, was the chief of the Consumer Protection Committee or something like that, about a year and a half ago, and how the right to repair bill was being held up there. There is a chance of it moving forward in the future, and I would like to actually have representation in that state so that we have some chance of actually communicating with individuals in the legislature, figuring out what's going on, and moving right to repair forward in that state in a manner that it hasn't before. Hopefully I don't forget to, but yeah, there should be a link down below in terms of what was going on in the state of Minnesota a year and a half ago. So this was to hire a lobbyist in the state of Minnesota, and holy crap, you seriously signed me out, even though I didn't click sign out. So sorry, you're going to hear me curse out Chase Bank a lot during the process of me doing all of this. There are many reasons to curse Chase Bank out, and you're going to see me curse at their crappy web interface, and also some other things as I go through this list. So this was the wire transfer to the Minnesota lobbyist. Edit My apologies, I misspoke over there. That transfer that I just selected is not for a lobbyist in Minnesota. That is for a lobbyist in Missouri. We have retained a lobbyist in Missouri as well to try to push right to repair forward there. This is me spending on QuickBooks again. This over here is a Best Western hotel and a Holiday Inn in the state of Massachusetts. Now, one of the things I've said is that Massachusetts is a state that I have a lot of faith in getting right to repair passed in because they already passed automotive right to repair twice, in 2012 and in 2020. So this is a state that I want to put a lot of focus into since there's a lot of support in the legislature for right to repair, and they've already passed an automotive bill in the past. So what I did is I went to pretty much every single repair shop that I could in the state of Massachusetts to speak with them about doing a lobbying day. Many people say that they're going to do it, but they don't show up the day of, or they don't talk to their customers about it. And a lot of people, admittedly, are just kind of cynical. So I wanted to try and see if I could get some more turnout from people in the state of Massachusetts by physically visiting and speaking with every single repair shop that I could in the area. Some of them we got dinner with, we spoke with, we had fun, we shot the shit, we talked a little bit. And I also did this video at the repair shops that allowed me to film inside the repair shop. So this was a hotel that I stayed at during that place. I believe I stayed at 5 different hotels during my week and a half stay in Massachusetts. So this is one of them. This was another one of them. This is, again, a GoFundMe donation. This was I believe I was parking in Lowell to go in front of a repair shop. This is a hotel in Randolph, Massachusetts. This was me parking in Boston and Cambridge, where it's almost impossible to park without getting towed or ticketed immediately if you don't pay for parking. And this was this was a hotel in Randolph, Massachusetts. This was a GoFundMe donation. This was me parking in Boston. This was a GoFundMe donation. This was a hotel during that Massachusetts trip that I took. And this is a check over here. This check is one sec, I'm just going to clap so that I edit out the account number because I don't want the account number showing up. Okay, so this check is to Washington PIRG, that stands for Public Interest Research Group. They are doing a lot of advocacy work on behalf of Right to Repair, and I also wanted them to, in addition to doing their advocacy work, to be able to retain a lobbyist to collaborate with them in the state of Washington. I've spoken with the chair of a committee there that really wants to push a Right to Repair bill through, and I figured it would make sense to hire somebody who can actually give us an idea of what it is we need to do to organize and get Right to Repair pushed forward in that state. So I supported the efforts that are already going on in that state by giving them funds that they could then use to hire a lobbyist and do more advocacy work in the state. Over here, this is $761 that got spent on the attorney that is helping me organize my affairs and advising me on what I can do, cannot do, should do, shouldn't do, and so on and so forth, running this organization. So this is a bill for an attorney. These are all donations from GoFundMe. This over here is $272 to Atlantis Printing. Atlantis Printing is a local print shop where you can get flyers, business cards, banners, shit like that. And what I did is I gave every single one of those repair shops a card that said when the lobbying day was and what the details were for it so that I can get them to actually show up to it. No excuses, no, oh, I missed it, oh, I didn't know. No, here's the card, here's the date, keep this shit and look at it on this date. And I also gave them materials that they can give their customers. Sometimes when you have a customer that's amazingly excited, in that moment when like, oh my God, you got my baby pictures back, like while they're in that moment, that's when you can get them to do something for you. And I wanted to get the customers to actually convert into emailing or calling a legislator at that time. And I created a little handout that makes it obvious how to do that, why they should do that, and all that good shit. And I told them to give it out to the best customers that they had that were the most motivated. As we go on here, this is a donation from a GoFundMe. This is for accounting software over here. The $27. This is a Dwayne Reed. Dwayne Reed, I believe I used Walgreens or Dwayne Reed to print a sign for the prepaid wireless expo for the booth that we had there. And this was more of those sheets that I suggested people give their best customers so that they can be informed on what Right to Repair is and also contact their local legislator over it. I wanted to get as many of the repair shops that showed up as possible to give these sheets to their customers so that we can get more people speaking with legislators. So this is just for a physical print shop over here at Atlantis Printing. These are GoFundMe donations, more GoFundMe donations. Let's continue scrolling. Actually, is this where I left off? Yeah, this is where I left off. So just more boring GoFundMe donations. This is a bill from, again, the attorney that is assisting me in doing all the work with ensuring that I'm, doing everything by the book, and as far as running a 501c4, filing all the right paperwork and all that stuff. This is, again, accounting software. A bunch of GoFundMe donations. Scroll. Yes, continue. Okay. Let's see. This is paying for accounting software here. This was me paying the law firm that assisted me in setting up the 501c4. This was me paying for accounting software. Let's see. I think I missed something because when I hit continue, I think it scrolled down too far. Okay, I think I already captured all that. Accounting software over here. This was a transfer to the savings account. So this was not me paying anybody. That was just me transferring money to the savings account. What else do we got here? This was something to do with verifying my account with QuickBooks or something like that. So they gave me $5 and then they debited 5 cents. I guess I got the better end of the deal there. This was a fee for accepting a wire transfer. This was a transfer to the savings account, so I wasn't keeping too much in the checking account. More GoFundMe donations. This over here was accounting software. This here was me transferring to the savings account. GoFundMe donation. This was an individual that wired $100,000, insanely generous. Again, I'm going to put a clap here just so I remember to edit out his name. This was somebody donating $576. So what you have over here are a bunch of Zelle payments from people that decided to donate. One person donated 25, another 100, another 100,000, another 576, another 50, 200, 100, 100, 500. I did not ask these individuals if it was okay if I could share their name, so that is why I am blocking out their name over here. It's not because I don't want to be transparent. It's just I didn't ask them if they were okay with me sharing their information. So that is that. That is for Repair Preservation Group Action Fund, how the money has been spent and how it has been received. We plan on hiring lobbyists in more states. We haven't gotten a bill for Georgia yet, but there is activity going on in Georgia. Probably in a month, I'm going to have to make another payment to the one in Washington. And I also plan on doing certain things federally. So there's certain federal involvement I want to get into. And I believe that with the lobbying approach I'm taking now, I do think that there's a good chance that there's going to be funding for the next 2 to 3 years at minimum if I continue at the pace that I'm going, unless I ramp things up a little bit. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go over Repair Preservation Group. So what I just showed you, that's the GoFundMe money. This is the GoFundMe money for political lobbying. That's how that is being spent. The next one is going to be Repair Preservation Group, just normal, boring, old Repair Preservation Group. And that is that was not funded by you guys. Over 90% of the funding for that came from one individual donor who donated $1 million. And I am going to go through how that was spent, why it was spent in the way that it was spent, and by showing you checking and savings. So over here, again, you have the savings account. This currently has $448,000 in it, and checking account with $299,000 in it. So let's go over everything that you see over here. The first is a payment to an antitrust attorney who is doing some work with me, who is helping me out with regards to pretty much explaining how companies at this point in time are, in his opinion, breaking antitrust law with their anti-right to repair actions, and pretty much taking the things that I complain about on this YouTube channel and turning that into an intellectualized, properly cited document on how this harms the consumer. The next one is a payment to someone who helps with structuring nonprofits. This is think of it like coaching. Someone who's kind of a coach when it comes to running a nonprofit and making sure that you stay oriented and on task and everything. I know how to run for-profit businesses, but again, I'm not going to lie. I am not an expert at running nonprofits, and I could use help from time to time. That's what this is for, and somebody that I trust suggested that I speak to a consultant on that, so that's what this is for over here. This is to United States Public Interest Research Group Education Fund. So this, what I'd like to do here is I would like to help them create educational materials that tell people why right to repair is something that matters, but I would also like to help them with regards to funding small advocacy and activist groups that will then be able to educate people on what right to repair is. 501c3s are not allowed to lobby. But what they can do is educate you. So, for instance, when they came out with that document about John Deere, it was something like deer in the headlights. They were explaining how this increased cost to farmers, how this can potentially mess with food supply, how John Deere's anti-repair tactics hurt farmers, what specifically they do that hurts farmers, and so on and so forth. They will create documentation that specifically goes over what all of the problems are and educate people on what the problems are. And I would like people other than me to be able to do this work. On this channel, when it comes to Apple, I will go over and say, here's what they did. Here is a problem that should be fixable for $200. Here's a chip that I should be able to buy for $5 to do it. Here's the specific thing that they did to make this difficult. It doesn't say, pass this law. It doesn't say, here is what I want a legislator to do. It simply points out what the problems are. And I want other people other than me to be doing this. So I would like to help them with regards to creating these types of materials. And I would also like to help fund small advocacy groups to educate people on what right to repair is so that people learn about right to repair from someone other than me. Sometimes these groups are people that I agree with. Sometimes they're people that I don't think I would agree with. They're people that I don't even think that I would like, that I think would want to spit on me for some of my opinions or some of the political things I say on my channel. That's not what's important. What's important is not whether the people that are always going to agree with me. What's important is what they believe when it comes to right to repair and whether or not I believe within their local community they will be able to do a good job educating people properly on what right to repair is, why it matters to them, and how it harms people in that particular community. So this is a grant system where I will look through applicants and I will approve them if they meet certain criteria and if I believe they would do a good job of educating people in that area about right to repair. You could have a 501c4 hire lobbyists until you're blue in the face to talk to lawmakers about something and why you should pass this. But if there's no real data there that points to why something is a problem and people in the community aren't really aware of something as a problem, it doesn't really matter. So that is what that is. This is a donation from one of the, so people sometimes send checks to donate. This is not funded by GoFundMe. This is funded by I did not run a GoFundMe campaign for this. So this was a transfer from the savings account to the checking for certain things that I plan to be doing. This is over here. These were, when I get those checks from things like Benevity or the Benevity Giving Fund where people are having their donations matched by their employer, that type of thing. This is me paying Hetzner for hosting Repair.wiki. So Repair.wiki is something that I have. This is my little project over here where people can post information on how to repair different types of devices. And this was getting kind of overloaded on the old host that I had during peak times. So I have this over here. This is run on Hetzner, which is actually a really good host. They scale really well. They're a nice little host. I like them. And they have good support, good everything else. And these are the types of guides that I'm hosting there right now on Hetzner. Okay, let's go back here. This is, I guess, since I'm paying something foreign, there's a foreign exchange rate thing over there. This is accounting software and QuickBooks stuff. This is service charges for the month of September. So I told you guys that I was going to be cursing out Chase a lot during this. And I had a conversation with Chase about what I was doing and about the account. And I specifically asked for an account where I don't get a bunch of these bullshit fees. They said this would be it. They actually removed some of the fees that they had charged me and promised I was never going to get that fee again. And then a month later, what do I get? A fucking fee again. I'm kind of intertwined with Chase Bank because I use them for a lot of different things. I started using Chase Bank back in the day when they were the only ones where you could do wire transfers online without physically going to the branch. And when I ran a supply company where I was doing wire transfers all the time, the international wire transfers all the time, that was very important to me. But and I also have my merchant services with them for my other business. And it's just like literally Chase Bank is right on the corner. So I walk outside 10 steps every time I have a problem. The problem is you always have a problem with Chase Bank. And the fact that this fee hasn't gone away is something that I'm probably going to waste a good amount of time tomorrow going in and bitching about, and they'll remove it again. So that's a fee from Chase Bank because they suck. This is Google Suite for the nonprofit. So we use Google Suite services for organizing, calendar, email, and storage, a bunch of other stuff like that. These are, again, donations that people have made via check. So these are those Benevity Giving Fund donations. This is hosting for a different site that we had that was going to be temporary. This is $16.95. This is a payment to somebody who was providing useful information on repair.wiki. So repair.wiki does take in information from the community, but if you are going to provide information of this caliber, and we request that you provide information of this caliber and you live up to it, we do provide compensation to those who are going to provide top-tier information. Again, I'm not like iFixit's a great resource. iFixit's a great place if you want to know, here's how you replace the screen, the battery, the charge port. When it comes to some of the bit more complicated issues, what I'd like to be able to do with Repair Preservation Group is find technicians that, for very in-demand devices that are at the top of their field, really know how to solve problems that nobody else knows how to solve, compensate them to post information on how to solve those problems, so now everybody knows how to solve those problems. And the hope is when people are then able to do those repairs and they're able to fix things that they weren't able to fix before, that will result in the nonprofit getting more donations that can fund more people who can post solutions that will result in more fixed devices. Those more fixed devices create the money to be able to fund more of the repair.wiki stuff. So that's kind of the idea over there. And this is compensation for a top-class technician posting information. This was a transfer from my savings account. This was spending from SurveyMonkey.com. We were using SurveyMonkey.com for some of the research that we were doing for a project that I was discussing in the beginning, the antitrust project. This is, again, us paying for hosting and the foreign exchange rate thing. This is paying for a new website. This is paying for web design over here, for getting a real website put together. The current website I have is just a temporary one. This is payment to the lawyer that's helping me out with everything. As I said, 501c3s can be kind of a pain in the ass when it comes to what I am allowed to do, what I'm not allowed to do. And I did call it a, quote, lawyer money generating machine. And in many ways, sadly, it can be. And so this is the law firm that has been assisting me with all the things that I can do, what I can't do, the filings, all that kind of stuff. This is accounting software. This is, again, service charges from Chase Bank, which, again, I was told I would not be paying. You'll see refunds down below, but Chase does this sneaky shit where they refund you the service charges and then they just hope you won't notice and charge you again. I'm going to be going into Chase Bank and bitching about that tomorrow. This is, again, Google Suite. We use Google Suite for the things that Google Suite for email, calendar, file hosting, that kind of stuff for the group, for the board members, and also for some of the people doing research for us. This is, again, HostGator, boring. This is a check that went out, again, to U.S. Are you serious? Again, I told you I'm going to curse out Chase Bank a lot, and they literally signed me out for no fucking reason. So let me sign back in. U.S. Public Interest Research Group Education Fund for the same purposes that I was just recently talking about. So I told you what we were using this for, how we were going to be issuing grants to these smaller organizations, and also the educational materials that we wanted to be able to produce. This relates to us creating materials that demonstrates how the lack of right to repair is harming the consumer and also harming people in different industries and so on and so forth. So that, again, it's not just Louis Rossmann making a bitching YouTube video. It's, here's a 30-page document with really pretty graphs and facts and statistics and citations and all that good shit that explains why this is an important issue and who this harms, how it harms them, and why. Continuing, this is web hosting over here. I believe this is somebody that used Amazon Smile to donate to us when they used Amazon for something, to buy something. This is a wire transfer to Beacon Research. This is a firm that does things like they do focus groups and what's the other word I'm looking for? It's not a focus. They do focus groups and polls. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to figure out, what do people think about right to repair? What do they know? What do they believe the issues are? Where are they misinformed? If we are going to educate people on right to repair and we're trying to run an education campaign throughout the country, I kind of want to know what not people that watch my YouTube channel, not people that are tech savvy know. What does your average everyday person across different demographics, different education levels, different income levels, and different tech experience know about right to repair? What do they think the issues are? Do they know that these things are issues? And when they are presented with anti-right to repair propaganda from auto manufacturers, Apple, CTA, any CTIA, or anybody else, what do they think of it? In order for me to effectively educate people on the issues, I need to understand what information is out there right now and what people think of that information. Now, I'll be honest with you. Could I have done this in a more affordable way? Probably. And this is one of those things where I look back, and while I have very useful information that is going to be very useful going forward with regards to how we advocate for right to repair, how we educate people on right to repair, what it is, the points or the talking points that we really want to hammer home, what information people need. I used this firm because I was being advised by a group of individuals that how do I put this? Are used to people that have more money than I do, and I believe that there would have been ways I could do this where I wouldn't have gotten results that were as good, but I don't think I needed results that were up to the caliber of what I spent here. So I would file that under the folder of mistakes. I could have likely spent a lot less money and gotten something similar to this. The money that we're spending with U.S. PIRG and granting to advocacy groups and activist groups to educate people on right to repair, I think that's money well spent, and I think that's being spent very, very efficiently. I don't think this is the most efficient use, and I will admit that I could have done better there. Going over here, this was, again, a transfer from the savings account to here. This is a wire transfer to a Paul fucking Daniels in Australia. So Paul Daniels makes the board view software that many of you use. But one thing that he's producing that many of you may not be aware of is a database of readings on boards, known good boards. So in the beginning days, when I was learning how to do board repairs, one of the things that I had the benefit of, because I have a repair shop with over 100 different computers here, is I could, at any given point in time, take a laptop off the shelf that works and measure it and figure out what the measurements were on a known good board. That made it much easier for me to learn board repair. If you're sitting at home and you want to learn board repair, how do you know if this circuit is the problem versus this circuit being the problem? You don't really have a way of knowing what the measurements are supposed to be on a known good board. I do, and that accelerated my learning process. I was constantly comparing the broken board in front of me to a known good board, because I had the luxury of having that because I was a repair shop. If you're a smaller repair shop or you're just somebody trying to fix something in the comfort of your own home, you don't have the luxury of having a known good board that you could measure. So what Paul Daniels wanted to do is create a database of known good board measurements so that you could compare the measurements on the board in front of you with measurements from known good boards that other people had made. So we funded Paul Daniels so that he could contribute to this database by sending out multimeters that automatically connect to the computer and automatically connect to his software to pretty much go around the machine like this, measure all these different points on the board, and put it into this database that anybody has access to. Paul Daniels creates software that's only available if you pay for it, but he also creates a free version of his software that's available to all. And the free version of the software will give you access to this open board database where you have access to known good measurements for a number of different boards. If I did not have a repair shop where I had a bunch of devices in the shelf that I could measure at any given time, I may have never become as good at board repair as I am now. Having access to all those machines and a smorgasbord of different parts and measurements so that I know how those systems is supposed to measure was very helpful. Being able to say, okay, pin 2 measures 0.9 in diode mode, pin 3 measures 0.8. And then on a known good board, 0.9 and 0.8, okay, that's not my problem. Or seeing 0.9 and 0.8 on a known good board, it's 0.9 and 0.1. Okay, pin 3 is not supposed to be 0.8, it's supposed to be 0.1. That must be my problem. That accelerated my learning. And being able to accelerate that learning for people who don't have the benefit of having a crowded repair shop is something that is very important to me. So that was what that 5,000 was for there. And the open board database is evolving with time. This was, again, a payment for hosting for the wiki, very boring. This is a transfer from the savings account to the checking, boring. Donations that came in via Benevity, and people sending me checks with donations. Again, like if somebody wants to have their employer match their donations to a 501c3 if they have an employer matching program. Usually Benevity and companies like that allow that. So that's what those checks are. This is accounting software. This is Chase realizing that they were charging me fees that they weren't supposed to be charging me, and they refunded me, but then they immediately started charging the fucking fee a month later, hoping I would forget, and they almost fucking got me, but they're not going to get me because I keep track. So this is them refunding me fees they weren't supposed to charge me after they charged me those fees. This is, again, Google. This was the Google Suite, so, Gmail for an organization, Google Drive, Calendar, all that stuff within an organization and for the work that we were doing. This is a payment to, again, that same consultant that helps you with strategy, writing up a book that goes over all the things that your nonprofit is going to be doing, seeks to do, and so on and so forth. This it also provides a lot of consulting on how to run a nonprofit efficiently and effectively. This is for hosting over here to HostGator for a temporary site. This was a transfer from the savings account to the checking. This was me paying the lawyer. This was, again, this was me paying my hosting and the foreign exchange rate over here. Let's take a look. Over here, we've got a check. This was payment to an attorney for legal advice. Let's see. This over here was me paying Cameo.com for Steve Wozniak to answer my question, which is, what do you think of right to repair? This is a service charge for the month of June for that I wasn't supposed to be charged. Again, F Chase. This was a transfer from my savings account, bookkeeping, deposit of a check. This was, again, Google hosting. This was for a web designer. Admittedly, I kind of wish that had been going along a little faster, but we are working on getting something so that I'm working with something a little bit better than GoFundMe and a placeholder website, but that is in the works. This was to a web designer over here. These were deposits of checks that that people had sent that were donators. This is SurveyMonkey. I was using SurveyMonkey for some of the research we were doing for the antitrust piece that I discussed earlier. This is someone who's helping me with that antitrust piece. I'm working on demonstrating how consumers are being harmed by some of the anti-right to repair practices that are going on nowadays, and how that relates to existing antitrust law and breaks existing antitrust law. Again, this is Chase trying to fuck me over on fees, as they always do. Again, we're going to be getting all that back. Again, that they refunded me a while ago, but then they just do it again. Again, Chase is a cunty bank. I don't really have anything else. Speaking of being a cunty bank, they just signed me out. So let me just payments to the antitrust attorney. This is a payment to Beacon Research, again, for the focus groups and the polls that we were doing so that we could learn what people's current thoughts are on right to repair so that we could tailor our educational materials accordingly. And again, going back, there are things that I will look at and I will say, this made sense, this didn't make sense. Spending that particular amount of money on that material, I was told by many consultants that this was a good idea, a good thing to do. And I think it's good that we got that information, but there were other ways to go about doing it. And this is something that I look back on and I would consider this to be a mistake, even if we did get good information from it. This was someone who was creating materials for the website and logos for us, imagery, stuff like that we were going to be using in promotional materials. This is a deposit from somebody who sent us a check. These were transfers from the savings to the checking account. This is us paying for wiki hosting for a month or two. I believe this was bookkeeping software. This is Chase fucking me over, which, again, I'm going to be screaming at them for that because I'm not supposed to be getting fees on this account for reasons I discussed with Chase. This is Google Suite over here. So I pretty much explained that over and over again. Bookkeeping software, hosting. Let's see, what do we got here? This is a check to the law firm that helped us start up the 501c3 to begin with. This is for some basic, really hyper basic web page design for the placeholder website that I'm using right now for the organization. This was, I believe, a bank fee for a checkbook. And this was for the antitrust stuff. And that is that. That is that at this point. This was transfer this was a transfer in from the savings account, and Chase signed me out again. And this is in the savings account, and this is the deposit from the wealthy donor that funded just about everything that's being done with the 501c3 right now. This is, again, one person donated $1 million, and he said, I want to start a 501c3 that deals with this stuff. I don't know if he is really hyper into right to repair and every single thing I'm doing, or if he just wanted a way to get a deduction on his taxes. I don't really know. But yeah, some dude who watches my YouTube channel just wrote a check for $1 million to a 501c3 that he made me the executive director of. So that is... That's that. Now, again, there are many things that I want to do into the future with this. I do plan on being involved with regards to the advocacy organizations that we're working with to try and get more people involved that aren't me, that are already involved to some extent, that know about right to repair, that kind of understand that it's a problem. I want them to be able to have the funding they need to be able to do this in a full-time capacity and get more people to understand that this is an issue. There needs to be people outside of just the people that watch my YouTube channel that understand this is a thing. Like, I should not be the only voice talking about this. I should not be the loudest voice talking about this. There needs to be people with different perspectives from different corners of different communities discussing this. And I want to come up with educational materials that will get people to understand why this is an issue so that they actually have something they can point to. Manufacturers are going to come up with these little 30 to 50-page presentations on how they're really ecologically friendly and they care about the environment and they care about the user and here's how we benefit you. And I want to be able to counter that with something factual that actually says, no, that's not true. This is how you're actually harming people. And that's something that we're doing. And we're also putting up a really concerted effort on the lobbying front. I do plan on doing more at the federal level, and I do plan on having more involvement in different states and more states as things go forward. I don't just want to hire a lobbyist in a state. I want to make sure that there's enough grassroots support and enough materials, enough education materials, enough advocacy so that this actually moves forward. We're not always going to agree on the actions that I take. And sometimes I'm going to do the wrong thing. Sometimes I'm going to fall flat on my face and fail. I'm not lying to any of you. I'm not misrepresenting who I am. I am not a professional activist. I'm not a professional lobbyist. I'm not a professional political consultant, nonprofit runner, or any of these things. I'm a dude that sits in his recliner, comes to work, fixes things in his repair shop, and talks about what he thinks is wrong with the world. But what I can guarantee you is that I will put in a best-ditch effort to avoid the future being a world where we, quote, own nothing and be happy. And one thing I can guarantee you, one thing I will promise you, is that while I will sometimes lose, that we are going to win more often than we lose, and we will learn from the mistakes when we do lose. And we are going to put in a concerted effort that is greater than the effort that has been put forward with regards to right to repair in the history of this movement. We are going to have more representation in more state bodies than ever before. We are going to have more concerted lobbying efforts than ever before. We are going to have more information and educational materials on our side than ever before, and we are going to have more grassroots advocacy than ever before. And that is because of all of you. Whether you were the dude that gave me $1 million and said, you do you, or whether you're the people who donated $1 to this GoFundMe. Every single one of you is making this possible, and every single one of you is making something possible that I 9 or 10 years ago honestly thought never would have been possible. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to go over before I end this video, which is executive compensation. What am I getting paid for all of this? What have I transferred to myself? One thing you may notice as I've went through every single one of the payouts here is that there has been a $0 payout to myself. That's right. Nothing, which is, as I said in the beginning, how it would be. I have no problem with making money, and I have no problem with people getting rich. The thing is, this is a nonprofit. I have a for-profit business where I make money, and I have no problem being an evil, greedy, capitalist pig and making as much money as possible from my private business. But this is a nonprofit. You guys did not donate to this nonprofit so that I could be rich. You guys are not donating to this nonprofit so I could pay myself $100,000 a year. You guys are donating to this nonprofit because you want to see lobbying get done that was not being done because nobody had the money for it. And I am not taking money out of money that I said would be used for lobbying and paying myself a paycheck for it. I said that I was going to be doing this at no cost, and I meant it. And there are people out there that said, well, how much is he paying himself? Or he's enriching himself from this. Or, he said that he was having problems paying his back rent. I bet he's paying his current landlord out of this. And I know that one of the benefits of being a troll on the internet, an anonymous troll on the internet, is never having to say you're sorry and never having to admit that you're wrong. And I don't expect any of the people that said any of these things to actually admit that they were wrong when it comes to what they were accusing me of. Let's just be real. They were accusing me of embezzling funds. And as can be made clear here, there is not a single... You may disagree with some of the lobbyists I've hired. You may disagree with a consultant that I hired. You may disagree with firms that I spoke to. You may disagree with certain aspects of how I go about things. There is not a single red cent in this entire thing that has been used to enrich myself, my company, or my staff members, family members, or anybody closely associated with me in that way. All of this money has gone towards the cause of right to repair and pushing things forward. That's about it for today. As always, I hope you learned something, and I'm going to be doing these updates as time goes on just to give you an idea of what's going on. I don't really have a lot to show you right now since we've only had a few months of paying lobbyists, and admittedly, I can't really discuss all the internal workings with you because if I discuss with you what they've told me, it gives my opposition something that they can work with, and I don't really want to give them something to work with or run with until I know that what we've done has actually pushed the movement forward a little bit. But that's about it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.